Hi, Mark. How you doing?
Not too bad.
Not too bad?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can't really complain too
Can't
much.
complain. So, kind of okay.
Yeah, I mean, a little meh. I mean, the week, there were some good spots, but I mean, I think kind of like the overall trend, I mean, looking at this,
Okay.
it was kind of a tough week, but I
Okay.
mean, there definitely were, like, I mean, watching the Patriots game was fun, so I mean, there's a couple good moments.
Okay, so that was one thing I wanted. We're definitely going to talk about that in a moment. That's great. No, you can even look at it if you want. Patriots game, that was one thing we just kind of talked about in the last session. So you did get a chance to watch that, and it went well.
Yeah, it was a good game. They won, so I was pretty happy.
By a lot.
Yeah.
And one of the things we talked about too is you wanted to make sure you follow through with that scheduled date with Melissa to kind of see how that went.
I mean, it wasn't kind of set in stone, but we were able to kind of throw something together kind of like last minute on Friday. Mm-hmm. It started off a little tough, like kind of a little late, it kind of getting started. Took a while to find a parking spot. So, I mean, little stressors, and like I kind of was just in a funk in the beginning, but by the time we got our food and a couple drinks, I was feeling a lot better. Well, but I mean, just like kind of like just relaxing and kind of being past the point of getting ready for the date night, because it really seemed like just kind of getting going for it was just one of the hard parts about it.
Maybe that'll be something, if it's okay with you, that we can talk a little bit later. Yeah. Maybe it fits into your activity schedule there. Just want to do a brief mood check as well. How's it been the last couple of days?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, things have been going okay. I mean, obviously not quite where I'd want them to be, but I mean, fine.
So where would you rate your depression 0 to 10 there?
I mean, maybe some days like a 6, but I think kind of like right now maybe like a 7.
Okay,
like kind of
6 or 7.
I mean, some good days, but still kind of most of them just kind of around that 7. Just tough.
Okay. And it looks like, just looking, you did do your ratings there too, the pleasure and the so we'll talk about that as well. So that's good. So I just want to get going then into this, because everything you're saying is good. It's helpful. It seems like you're kind of doing okay, but obviously there's some things we need to talk about, to work on. So my agenda for us today, and let me know what you think about it, is I think the first thing we should do is obviously talk about, we talked about how last week, this would be one of the first things to do, is do your activity schedule. You did get a chance to fill out the hopelessness scale. It's been a couple weeks before you came in, so I just want to take a few minutes only takes a second to score that and process your level of hope and also motivation, just to kind of see how that's going. And one thing that wasn't on the agenda initially, not that it was horrible or super bad, but I want to spend a little more time maybe teasing out some of the themes about your date with Melissa, because it seems like I've noticed a couple times where sometimes it does end okay, but it seems like the way they start off is kind of friction, blah, and I think that might be related to some automatic thoughts that we've only briefly touched upon lately. And then lastly, what we'll do, if this goes well, which I think, looks like you did a decent job filling it out, is to, if we feel like we're ready, we'll talk about maybe scheduling activities within the next week or two, like that other thing that we talked about before. How does that sound to you?
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
Okay, so let's just jump right in. Let's talk about this weekly activity monitoring log there. Before we get into details, and there's no right or wrong answer for this, how would you describe your overall experience? This is the first time you really set, doing it by yourself, completing this.
I mean, it was pretty tough. I mean, there was times when it was actually kind of nice to see that I was enjoying things and I was kind of accomplishing things. But I mean, even just looking at it right now, like I'm kind of like getting like kind of like a feeling about like how tough of a week part of this week was, and so I mean, it was an interesting experience to actually like kind of rate everything. But I mean, kind of as you can see here, I mean, I kind of stopped rating things after my tough day at work on Tuesday. So
Tuesday was a tough day.
Yeah, Tuesday was a really tough day. I just wasn't able to really get as much done as I had wanted to, and I wound up having to stay an extra 2 hours.
On Tuesday, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is not a bad start. Remember, overall we talked about that obviously we do our best to fill it out as best we can.
Yeah.
And it's perfectly natural to have a day or two or parts of days to maybe not follow through.
Yeah.
But for what it's worth, as I look at here, most days are filled out pretty well. So remember, it isn't, an either or, good or bad. It's more what you get done. So I definitely see some stuff here we can process it. Sometimes I save this question for later, but I just the way you responded to my other questions, did you learn anything about yourself? Because it seems like you had some good insight with these it highlights what you've done well,
Yeah.
but it also kind of points out areas that maybe you're not too happy with.
I think like getting started in the morning is really tough for me. I mean, like it's almost not until like an hour or two into work where I feel like I'm actually getting stuff done and I'm kind of like feeling accomplished with really anything.
Okay. And we talked before too, probably doesn't help. I'm assuming it's still, you're getting up kind of late. It's like you're still feeling rushed is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, exactly. That like 8 o'clock hour, like to 9, I'm just kind of like
going through it.
I'm racing the clock.
Racing the clock, yeah. And that's hard even for anyone to feel a lot of pleasure going through that. How we just briefly, before we get into the details, are you feeling now talking about this?
I mean, I'm feeling good, but I mean, like I said, I mean, I think my mind's kind of wandering to Tuesday and kind of like what kind of fell out after that.
Seems like Tuesday is a day that we should talk about then. Okay. Because I might want to talk about a couple other things as well as I'm looking over here, is that you do have some other areas here of pleasure and accomplishment.
Yeah.
Let's highlight some of those. I see a few, but I want to see if you can...
Well, I mean, obviously starting with football, that was a good one. Getting to spend time with the dog has always been something I've really been enjoying. A couple times for TV and video games. But, I mean, like the date night. So, I mean, there's some activities, but, I mean, I think those are really kind of the most pleasurable that were there.
And I would agree, too. It seems like football game was good.
Yeah.
You just, not going to do this for every single task, but even your vacuuming. Of course, remember we said you don't have to always have high pleasure. Yeah. There's a lot of chores I do that are not the most pleasurable, but you had a decent level of accomplishment.
And I think part of that too was I was like getting ready for the football game, and so like I was getting the living room ready so that I could just like have a nice clean space.
Yeah.
So that was
you took advantage of the moment, which is good. And then as you already noted as well, it looks like playing the video games for the most part wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
I'm going to save the date night and Tuesday here for a moment as well. Let's see, particular other tasks here, like I mentioned the vacuuming.
Yeah.
Any other daily tasks? We talk about that as well.
I mean, I did some laundry on Wednesday night. That wasn't too bad. I was able to kind of actually... That was the thing. Melissa wasn't home.
And your accomplishment.
Yeah. I mean, that was the thing. I mean, it was a couple big loads. I actually folded them instead of them just sitting in the basket.
You got it done.
Yeah. Instead of just like picking it out and having it be super wrinkled, folded and actually hung it up.
That's great.
I actually did the laundry. So that wasn't too bad. I mean, I did the massive pile of dishes on Thursday, and that, I mean, I felt like I got something done. I mean, that's something I think I've said before, is that when I actually do it, I feel like I'm doing something, but it's just getting it started. That's really hard for me.
And that seems to be a theme, is initiating it.
Yeah.
It sounds like once you start doing it, not always, but a lot of times, you get it done.
Yeah.
You feel pretty decent about it.
Yeah, I guess.
And so that kind of is a good way to segue into, as I noticed that the mornings here, and you already said this as well, are a little bit tougher. So you did do a good job kind of noting, waking up, taking a shower, but I noticed that, and it's okay if it's not, pleasure and accomplishment's not that higher, but let's talk a little bit about that, because it seems like the mornings into work seems to be one area that's, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but a little bit of a struggle, at least to start off the day.
Yeah, I would definitely say that it is. I mean, and the thing is, I mean, I don't know what it would look like for me to really, like, enjoy it. I mean, is it more time? I mean, is it bringing the dog for a walk before? I mean, I really
Is it something you used to do in the morning?
Yeah, I mean, occasionally just bring them out for, like, a quick kind of thing around the yard and around the block. So, I mean, there's never anything special, but I mean, now it's like I don't even have time to put peanut butter on a piece of toast before I have to run out the door. And so, I mean, there's really not even a moment to kind of like take my shower and then sit down afterwards. It's just bing, bing, boom, and I'm in and out the door. And so it's tough. And I mean, again, like I feel like I'm racing against the clock, and I just really have... I don't know if it's that I just don't have any time for myself. I mean, I think that might be something.
Right. I think these are some good points, too, that we can process more, along with, I'm already getting some thoughts for your activity schedule. I'm already, so you can see how this is kind of helpful, is pointing out the good, quote-unquote, and the bad as well, the areas that you struggle with. Now, I do notice for your work days that you did complete the pleasure and accomplishment.
Yeah.
You did say that things get better in work.
Yeah.
I see that.
Yeah.
But Tuesday, just throughout the day,
Yeah,
not feeling much there.
Yeah, Tuesday was a real crapshoot. Tuesdays are the days that we have staff meetings, and I have to put together a lot of material for it.
Okay.
And I mean, we have like our whole company is the entire New England region, and I mean everyone's coming in from Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and it didn't go that well the other day. We were supposed to have a big like CPR training, and the person didn't show up, and I had to try and kind of put something together to kind of at least do something for those couple hours where people are driving tens and 20s of miles. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous, and I mean, I was able to get something together, but I mean, I could see all the people that just looked bored out of their minds, and I mean, they could have been working that day, and I mean, we were supposed to have a training, they didn't show up, and I kind of had to pick up the pieces, and I don't know, I felt like I didn't do a good enough job doing
Was that earlier in the morning?
Yeah, that was before lunch.
See a bit of a trickle-down effect? Yep. And is this the day you said you stayed later too?
Yeah, and I was trying to get a hold of the company because, I mean, we paid them to come in that day, and they
wow.
Yeah, and so they kind of broke that contract, and so I was trying to kind of pick up the pieces from that.
And you're responsible to pull up. Okay.
Because I was the one that actually found them as a trainer.
Okay. Yeah. So I can see, even as you're talking and looking at me now, little bit of self-blame there to some degree.
Yeah.
To be fair to yourself, it sounds like it was something that was completely unexpected. You did do your part to schedule it, right?
Yeah.
Have you used these individuals before?
Yeah, we used them last quarter. So,
okay.
I mean, actually,
how did that go?
I mean, it was good. I mean, it was a much smaller training. It was just for one of our sites. So, I mean, they only had to do 10 people. But this time we were bringing in pretty much the entire agency. And so we were really counting on them.
Okay. So, to be fair to yourself, a little bit in a sense, it sounds like you have used them in the past and they were successful. Yeah. So, this could have been a bit of a fluke there?
Yeah.
Okay. And you know, it sounds like may not have gone perfect, but you were able to put something together to get through it.
Yeah.
So did they actually still get something of the presentation?
Yeah. We did a little bit on cultural competency. I mean, that's something that, I mean, working with veterans, just such a diverse population that, I mean, it wasn't the best presentation. I didn't have slides prepared, but I was able to talk about it, have a couple of our case managers talk about their work. So, I mean, the whole day wasn't a wash in some regards, but just the feeling of knowing that I had that scheduled and that it didn't happen and people were counting on getting these certifications. I mean, I just took it really personally because I was the one that was in charge of reaching out to this company. Yeah, they worked with us before and we had success, but this time, I mean, just kind of like it, I don't know, like you said, I can tell that I'm taking it personally.
And I don't want to definitely not validate that. I can definitely feel the frustration there, and it's very real. And I wasn't there, obviously. Yeah. It makes me wonder, the way you describe it, and at least to some degree, that I don't want to say it was maybe successes too, but still happened. They still got, maybe you haven't gotten back the feedback or evaluations. Maybe, without making any assumptions, it didn't go as bad as you thought. I can definitely understand the stress. But I just want to give you some credit there, and I'm putting this in my mental bank as well in terms of other ways to kind of follow up. Maybe not. This could be maybe another example of maybe personalizing some type of automatic thought theme there, but something to kind of keep an eye on as well. And maybe you had to stay late because you had to spend all the other time. But you still got the work done at the end of the day, and you had dinner, not too pleasurable, but you did at least have some time to. Yeah, and I think play some games.
I mean, and that's the thing too. I mean, that was kind of what I did. I mean, I kind of withdrew and played games. I mean, I didn't spend the night with Melissa.
So you didn't see much time with Melissa that night. Okay. That's helpful to know as well. Just in interest of time, because I want to follow up with a few other things, is let's go into a little bit more details of your date night.
So yeah, I mean, kind of like as it says, like I came home, brought the dog outside, kind of got ready. But as it kind of came time to start getting ready, it was like, okay, Melissa, like, where are we gonna go eat? I mean, it's so childish, but I mean, that's really such like a hard thing for us to make that decision. And I mean, we're going back and forth, and she's getting frustrated with me because I can't make a decision. And I mean, it could kind of put like a sour note on it before, because I mean, we're spending 10, 20 minutes almost arguing. I mean, I wouldn't call it arguing, but I mean, we were just kind of like talking past each other. I mean, she wanted one thing, I wanted another, and
just before you even got out of the house.
Before we even got out of the house, and then I mean, I wasn't really in too much of a rush to get ready, and I mean, it didn't seem like she was either. And then by the time we get out the door, it was already starting to get late, and I'm starting to worry a little bit about like, okay, like, are we going to find a place? The place that we chose to go doesn't take reservations. It's a pretty busy part of Worcester, like. I'm just thinking, like, are we even going to be able to, like, find a parking spot? And we get there, there's
a lot going through your mind at once.
And I mean, I know I'm thinking about it a lot, but I mean, it was a tough kind of start to the night. And I mean, we got there eventually. It took us a while to park, and I mean, I was kind of worried about that. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous to think about finding parking, but I mean, for me, it's something with my truck. It's a little bit difficult for me to parallel park. But, I mean, it's just something that I worry about a little bit. I worry about kind of like the logistics of getting to places. And I think maybe that is kind of why I'm worried about getting things started, is just because I gotta get caught up in the logistics of it.
You spend a lot of time thinking about what needs to get done instead of following through again. So, there could be a little bit of anxiety going on there that, we discussed before, depression and anxiety. I'm not saying it's necessarily a diagnosable anxiety, but I do notice some themes of maybe worrying or ruminating about events, not just before, but sometimes afterwards as well. So, no initial plans where to head out, so you two, not arguing, but not very pleasant trying to decide where to go.
Yeah.
You finally decide where to go, but it's a little bit later than planned, and you're, instead of maybe enjoying the moment getting out there, you're worrying about where I'm going to park, are we going to have a seat, et cetera, et cetera. And then you do eventually park, have a seat, sit down. How did that go from that point?
I mean, once we got into the restaurant, we went out to this great Asian place for sushi, and I mean, once we got sat, and actually one of the bartenders was like, "Oh, hey, Mark, like, how's it going?" Like, and I was like, "Oh, like, they actually remember me." I mean, granted, I don't know if that's a good thing that I'm becoming a regular there, but I mean, it was at least nice to see someone at the restaurant was excited to see us.
That must have felt good.
Yeah, and so I mean, that kind of helped me loosen up a little bit, and then Melissa and I actually started to have a pretty good time because we were kind of just talking about stuff, talking about the dog. Her brother's getting married in a couple of weeks, and so we're just kind of talking about that. And so, I mean, again, like I'm even feeling better just saying that. And so, I mean, it was the night ended pretty well once it actually got started. Once we sat down and started eating.
So experiencing pleasure with your girlfriend is not an issue at all.
Yeah,
honestly.
It's just getting there.
It's getting there to that point, and working on some of those thoughts that maybe your mind gets stuck on a few things. Maybe a little bit of jumping to conclusions about what's going to happen. Maybe not directly related to this too. We talked a little bit about that dichotomous, like it's either going to be a good or bad night. Doesn't have to be a perfect night. It wasn't. But there's still a lot to take from it, some pleasure that came from that experience. So I think maybe, too, in terms of that can be an area that we can talk more about scheduling activities, and we'll filter through some of those thoughts as well that are going on. But I'm glad you're able to have a pleasurable experience.
Yeah, me too.
So it sounds like once you got in there, not a big deal. Yeah. So we just got to work on that front-end piece there. Yeah. And it seems like there's been other dates that have kind of, it's a pattern there with the flow. It starts off kind of and ends up pretty pleasurable. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of optimism to help improve that. One thing that I do want to point out as we just kind of wrap this up and tie in a few things is I didn't see much for other social activities here. We talked about hanging out with a couple of your guy friends, so is that something you would like to work on for scheduling activities?
Yeah, I mean, the only social activity, was with Melissa and my dog, and I mean, dog, I don't think that really counts too much as a social activity. But I mean, even if it was,
but an activity though, because it gives you pleasure, but not social.
Yeah, but I mean, maybe even if I had a couple friends over for the football game, I mean, that would be something that I'd really like.
So you would agree then that maybe, in addition to repeating some of these pleasurable activities, maybe throwing in one or two more social activities that we can talk about, and definitely. Doesn't matter what you're doing, but including your friends on there. What would be some other pleasurable activities that you would like to either continue doing or add on for next week, possibly?
I mean, next week, I've been spending a good amount of time with the dog. I really want to get back to the dog park.
Okay.
That's something that we haven't done in a long time. Get him to a couple lessons and a couple play dates. Trying to think of what else would be good. I mean, it's been a while since Melissa and I have gone to the park even, we would go to one of the local mountains, and we'd even go hiking a little bit.
Yeah, there's a lot of that around here.
Yeah, so I mean something like that, kind of like get out into nature
Mm-hmm.
without the dog, just kind of her and I.
Good.
So.
Before you spoke, the first thing I had in my mind is for pleasurable activities is get outside more with the dog.
Yep.
That seems something to really value. And I think it is good too. I fully support you also finding date nights are great, but getting out during the day and like the other thing I had in my back of my mind was outside activities. The dog does part of that, but it's nice to also have more time with Melissa to get outside, get some fresh air. And you seem to respond well to that, moving around outside. Probably feels good, right?
Yeah, it does.
And the weather's been really nice lately, so I want to take advantage of that. For tasks, what would be some tasks, whether pleasurable or not, that you think, especially the mornings, that you would want to make sure you either include in the future and or maybe some newer things to kind of focus or emphasize on?
I think actually like making a breakfast. Like a real good breakfast, like instead of just like slapping some peanut butter on toast would be something. But I mean, in terms of like other activities, I mean, I don't know. I was doing some yard work around the house, but I don't think that was quite really enough for kind of where we are in the summer right now.
Mm-hmm.
I want to start helping Melissa out with her garden a little bit more.
Okay.
So maybe something like that.
Okay. Those are great. So in addition to your usual tasks, stretching out those mornings, that's how we'll talk more about that later today with the activity scheduling, but it sounds like you just want more time to feel less rushed and actually have a breakfast and maybe do a couple more things outside with Melissa, other activities. That sounds good to me. So if you're okay with this, I want to not completely bench it, but talk about the hopelessness scale. I do want to maybe talk about some of your other thoughts and feelings about date night. I know we talked about it here, but kind of see how that'll influence us when we start. Maybe I think we're ready before we leave today, introducing maybe scheduling activities for the following week. Okay, so let's do that.